Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 13.26, Ruined. We are back.
Hey, have you guys heard of a game called Shifu?
No? What is it?
It's this game that a friend of mine's been playing lately, you see, where you're like a martial artist, and the more you fight, you get older and stronger, which is curious, because, as we all know, there's such a character in Aetheral Space, is there not?
Do you think this? I've got a question for you as well. Do you think teeth have a taste, but we're just like accustomed to it, like so because we have teeth in our mouth all the time?
I'm sorry, but you can't.
We're accustomed to the taste of teeth that it doesn't even register anymore. Like, is that why babies cry? Do you think?
Because they're always tasting their teeth.
Well, because they're not accustomed to it.
I'm putting my tongue all over my teeth. I don't taste anything.
But that's because you're tasting it all your life. It doesn't even register anymore.
I don't think that's how that works.
Because
I've drank water all my life too, and it registers every time I have it.
Would you say what it tastes like then?
It tastes like the temperature.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but my teeth don't change when it gets cold or hot. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What? What do you mean exactly? Hold on.
R/Sharp thoughts.
Why are you thinking about this? Why didn't you answer my Shifu question?
It would be funny if I just said some lots of bullshit about teeth.
That's weird. Anyway, welcome. We're here with chapter 13.26. Ruined! You ruined it! Which is a great opening to part 2. Hate. Without further ado, you should see an image on the Think Tan's recording of the ladder smile.
Yeah.
I don't know how the fuck a toy is supposed to fight. I assume that fight's going to be a bye. But let's see how everything else goes, shall we?
Yeah.
Paradise Karen hated. What specifically she hated in this particular moment, she could not say. Was it the script in her gnarled hands? Was it the words her blood-tainted eyes read? Perhaps it was the whole world. The world that had done this to her, for no crime other than seeking greatness. Is that her only crime, Dan?
Yeah. She did nothing wrong.
What you believe?
That's what Paradise Karen believes.
Hang on, I'm fixing something. I'm so sorry for this. Okay. Alright. I'd advise keeping calm, McCoy said, the bandaged woman lingering in the shadows. Your treatments are still unstable. Best not to confuse them, And them. There was always one of them.
Yeah?
Sorry, I got lost. I'm so sorry. Someone DM'd me. I turned on Do Not Disturb. And them. There was always one of them. One of the Dark Star scum, hiding somewhere nearby. Eyes and ears watching her. Fingernails crawling over his skin?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Her skin.
Fingernails crawling over her skin, over her bones, like ants making a nest inside her tongue. She licked her cracked lips. It seems you're not listening to me, McCoy said calmly. That's fine, too. This is the Carmen Sandiego lady, right?
Red fedora, red long coat bandages, yeah.
October Jones. Paradise narrowed her eyes. She surely hated these people as well, even if she was making use of them for the time being. It wasn't as if she had much of a choice. After she'd been attacked by the Supreme Heir, it had taken all of the Forest of Sin's power just to keep her alive and stable. The humiliation lingered even now, the rage at just how helpless she had been. It rushed across her body, a mixture of hot and cold that twisted her face into a now familiar snarl. It had taken 6 months for her to even recover the ability to talk. Without Darkstar's assistance, it was doubtful she'd ever have been able to leave her hospital bed. But she never should have needed to resort to Darkstar. Their leader had been a tool that had refused to meet his purpose. He was supposed to have helped her kill the Supreme. All he'd done was sit there and do nothing. Bastard, scum, she'd kill him, take his throat between her hands, and... Miss Karen, chided McCoy. But she'd made use of them. She'd bent their means to her will. It had been torturous and humiliating, but she was now near her previous level of strength. The Titan she'd been before the Supreme Heir had... That little bitch! The tallest flower was cut away first. An old fucking hag in that backwater village had once told her that. She'd assumed it was the dementia talking, but now she understood. You found pearls of wisdom even in the mouths of swine. That brat Aklyma was the one responsible for this predicament. She'd get hers too. Once she was the victor of this dawn contest, she'd teach that little cunt a lesson before the whole supremacy. Jam her thumbs into her eye sockets and feel the brains give way. Kill her, kill her, kill her! Tears brimmed in her eyes. She'd been beautiful, she had. They'd taken it from her. They'd all taken it from her. Everyone. They'd left her with nothing and forced her into the dirt to writhe like a dog. And why? Because the tallest flower was cut away first. Ooh, she'd kill them. Ooh, she'd kill them. Her eyes flicked back down to the script in her hand. Her mouth twisted into as much of a smile as it could manage. Aklyma. Atoi Musashi. Darkstar. Balte Kojiro. Her former subordinates. Her former allies. Her former enemies. She'd kill them all. And she'd start with this Dragon Hadrian. Lord Hadrian, said Xander Rain, please accept this, the sap of human perseverance. The entirety of the Tree of Might had gathered in their headquarters for this official inauguration. They had spared no effort in preparing the central hall. A long and grand staircase ran up through the center of the room, lined by white-flamed torches. The membership gathered below. The second through eighth branches stood at the head of the crowd, that scurrant woman, Violence, and her fellows, while the first branch, Xander Rain, knelt before the throne. Dragon Hadrian slouched above him, wearing a traditional white war robe. Rain extended the golden chalice in his hands, the container filled to the brim with a thick red liquid. North, standing next to the throne, eyed it with a wry smirk. What? He chuckled. You all spitting it or something? If looks could kill, North would have been butchered in that moment by every single member of the Tree of Might. Dragon suppressed his own urge to roll his eyes. Ceremonies like these were important to such fanatics. If doing this enabled him to keep control over a valuable asset, he'd gladly debase himself again. Show some respect, North, Dragon said, taking the chalice in one hand. This is glory. He brought the chalice to his lips, tipping his head back as he swallowed the whole thing in one gulp. A slight smile spread across his lips as he licked them clean. Before the gathered Tree of Might, he raised the empty chalice once more and smirked. Life through battle, he called out. Oh my god, that's so fucking gross. I think I'm gonna be sick. Life through battle! The Tree of Might roared back, the sheer power of their collective voices enough to shake the room. North put his hands over his ears, frowning in annoyance. Dragon sat back down in his chair. With this gesture, he was now the first zero branch in the Tree of Might's history. An absolute overseer, whose will overrode all others. It wasn't bad. Zero branch?
Yeah.
I'm the 0th branch. Fuck you. Why couldn't he just become the new first branch?
Because he doesn't want to do the stuff that the first branch has to do.
Oh, you're right. The Tree of Might would be invaluable going forward. Unlike the Crimson Carnival, a gang of treacherous criminals who Dragon had done his best to keep at arm's length.
Yeah.
The Tree of Might were a fighting force based around discipline, honor, and loyalty. Those weren't necessarily values that Dragon shared, but they made it much easier for him to trust them. His gaze flicked over to Xander Rain as the boy took his position on the other side of the throne. He'd been lucky that he'd gone to fight the first branch when he did. The boy's emotions had been in turmoil after the death of his father, and his ability had still been immature. Now, a year later, it would have been a much more difficult battle. Xander Rain's potential was frightening. There was a spark of strength in him that could mature into the storm of a supreme given the right circumstances. If he got the idea into his head at any point that his strength now surpassed Dragon's, things could get difficult, but that honestly wasn't likely. Xander Rain was a true believer. He'd latched on to the figure of Dragon Hadrian as supreme. He wanted to see the world the shooting star would create. Poor bastard. So long as he controlled Xander Rain, he controlled the Tree of Might. 83 central members in total, all Aether users, with the branches in particular being the equivalent of high-level special officers. 17 of those were able to access Absolution, the Tree of Might's ancestral Aether ability. With them, Anya Hapgrass and the Joker in his back pocket. Dragon's smirk widened. He'd drawn quite the potent hand. Oh, what is Absolution? What is ancestral Aether ability? Does the Tree of Might, is it a literal tree with an Aether ability? I assume maybe it's passed on. It's like, oh, I'll teach my son.
Yeah, it's like the traditional one. There's like, if you're in the Tree of Might, like, you gotta know this. This is the best ability.
What is Absolution?
We'll see it. Surely.
I'm sure. It was strangely quiet in the arena of the Absolute that night. Of course, that was somewhat understandable. Right now, neither of the contestants taking part in this fight were really a crowd favorite. The shooting star Dragon Hadrian had burnt away a good portion of his goodwill after his anticlimactic match against Xander Rain. The Gardener of Sin, Paradise Karen, was a disgraced ex-contender who had vanished from the public eye for the last 2 years. If you believe the rumors, she was hideous to behold under that ragged cloak of hers. A cheater versus a monster. Nobody was quite sure where their excitement was meant to be placed. Nevertheless, they came to see. The arena of the Absolute was as filled with spectators as ever, ready to watch the next set of matches begin. Hushed conversations filled the space as they waited for the contestants to arrive. Well, to wait for one of the contestants to arrive. As Paradise Karen sat down in the center of the arena, fingers scraping against the sand below, Dragon Hadrian was nowhere to be seen. This in itself wasn't especially surprising. He'd shown up at the last minute for his previous match too, but by now the rumors were already beginning to spread. Was Dragon Hadrian just not going to show up? Had he decided to surrender? When faced with a real fight, had he chickened out? How easily his battle against the Kaiser was forgotten. Paradise hissed beneath the cloak that covered her ravaged form. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it! Are you mocking me? This place is too loud, my head's gonna burst! Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you! Her muttered rant went unnoticed by the crowds. Most of their eyes were fixed on the scripts and monitors before them. If Dragon Hadrian didn't show up by midnight, he'd be disqualified by default, and he really was playing it close. There was only a minute remaining. In Ray Rudicia's observation booth, high above the arena, Ruth crossed her arms. She bit her lip as she watched, waited. I have a question.
Yeah.
So, we know this is only happening because there was no clear killer that survived Cadman.
Yeah.
What's to stop you from, say, after the Supreme Heir or whoever wins their fight and they're all, like, bloodied and ragged, someone just, like, shooting them in the head and becoming Supreme?
That's why you get, like, Tree of Might or someone to be your ally, so people can't just do that.
There's no, like, security detail at the event?
There is. Well, like, the second you win, that's the soldiers are your soldiers.
Yeah, that's fair. That's so funny. In Ray Rudicia's observation booth, high above the arena, Ruth crossed her arms. She bit her lip as she watched, waited. Come on, Dragon, she thought to herself. Don't fuck around. Losing by default would just be way too sad. Ray Rudicia herself, sitting on the bench, narrowed her eyes as she looked down at the sole contestant in the arena. She didn't seem too impressed. Ruth supposed that made sense. Ray was a reporter, after all. This wasn't shaping up to be a very exciting story. Standing guard on the other side of their client, Rex sneakily checked his watch. He clicked his tongue. 30 seconds left, he muttered. Is he really not going to show? Serena had taken control while the Del Seds were acting as Rudicia. He spelled it wrong. Rudicia.
My instant death ability is making me overpowered in another world as usual. I use it on Dragon. No, I'm Donnell.
We're acting as Rudicia's bodyguards, but as Rex asked his question, Bruno visibly slipped back into the driver's seat. He narrowed his eyes as his frown deepened. He'll show up, he grunted. There's no doubt about it. 30 seconds. Over by the door, Alice checked her nails. 20 seconds. Ruth gripped her forearms, the tension in her body growing by the second. 10 seconds. Paradise Karen growled, beginning to pick herself up. Waste of time, a waste of time, she snarled. Where is he? I'll drag him back myself, Gemini railgun. A bombardment. That was the only way to describe it. Blue bolts of light were fired from the mouth of the entrance tunnel like it was the barrel of a minigun, mercilessly pelting Paradise Karen. Debris from the shattered floor blasted through the arena, the only thing stopping it from raining down on the crowd being the automatic shielding. Even so, there were more than a few screams of surprise and shock. The attack was so sudden and devastating that, for a moment, Ruth thought Karen had been caught off guard and instantly killed. As the smoke cleared, though, it became clear that wasn't the case. Where Paradise Karen had been standing was now a gnarled sphere of black wood, coiled around the former contender like some grotesque cocoon. A shield she'd conjured with her forest of sin? Behind Ruth, Bruno shuddered. Seeing this ability didn't bring back good memories for anyone. The shield began to retract like a blooming flower in reverse, the wooden segments retreating back into Paradise Karen's body. For a moment she stood there, seething amidst the destruction. Then lurching forward, she allowed the forest of sin to manifest again. Blood burst out from her shoulder blades as 4 flexile branches wormed their way out of her back. They waved through the air like tentacles, dwarfing Paradise herself, every inch of their surface glinting with deadly thorns. She grinned with a warped mouth. Come on out, little boy. Since Paradise Karen had revamped her ability, it now manifested in 2 forms. The first, Forest of Sin, was essentially unchanged. Using it, Paradise could manifest parts of her self-aware forest into the real world, whether that was a single branch or the forest in its entirety. With a single thought, Paradise could convert the entire battlefield into her own territory. In terms of area control, it was unmatched. The only flaw was that it was self-aware. While Paradise could direct it, it also had an irritating tendency to act on its own. While Paradise would try to efficiently eliminate the enemy, the forest would prefer to play with its food. Funnily enough, that was also the flaw of the second form. Temple of Sin. Devised by Paradise and Darkstar as a means of accelerating her recovery, incorporated the force directly into her own body. It would prop her up and allow her to move beyond her means, as well as automatically defend her from attacks, even though the roots of the forest were wound around her bones, infesting her flesh and stopping it from sloughing away. Even her brain was kept stable by the forest, and even though Paradise Karen wasn't fully aware of this, the border between her own mind and that of her ability grew hazier by the day. Oh, so she's using like a cheat code pan, like boot via pan at home. Because of Forest of Sin, she wasn't worried about losing track of Dragon Hadrian. If it came down to it, she just developed the arena and let the forest have its fun. Because of Temple of Sin, she wasn't worried about being damaged by his attacks. The branches could slap Gemini Shotgun away, and the cocoon could withstand Gemini Railgun. But that didn't mean she was just going to stand here and let Hadrian do as he wished. Paradise's grin widened as her eyes flicked through the smoke around her. Every now and then she could see him just for a moment, darting from cover to cover in the ravaged arena, slowly getting closer to her. His intention was to get close and unleash an attack that the Temple of Sin couldn't block in time. She laughed, bloody saliva pouring from her mouth as her tongue lashed at the air, as if she'd ever allow that to happen! The branches of the Tree of Might had gathered to watch the match in their great hall, lined up before the monitor. Xander Rain frowned as he saw the new form that Paradise Karen had taken. Is that an absolution? This is Xander.
Yeah.
Is that an absolution? He asked, a hint of outrage in his voice. The third branch, Tyr Masterman, shook his head. Nay, he said, stroking his white mustache with a finger. Perhaps she took the inspiration from her former teacher, but it seems to be something far more atrocious. Xander's hands tightened as he looked at the mockery of their traditions, and his eyes narrowed into a glare. This is Paradise who's making them mad, right?
Yeah.
Paradise threw her head back, cackling at the sky as she began her victory. Her branches twisted for a moment, and then fired all their thorns as an omnidirectional attack, the spikes shredding the air around her. At the same time, she unleashed an Aether Ping, her dark green sparks coursing through the battlefield. Faced with the Aether Ping alone, Adrian might have cloaked, but that would be much more taxing if he had to protect himself at the same time. She felt the response deep in the smoke, her laughter increasing in pitch. She whirled around and slashed through the cloud with one of her branches, banishing the smog. With that single movement... Actually, an Aether Ping makes your Aether involuntarily react, right?
Yeah, unless she's ready for it in cloak.
Could you Aether Ping Gemini World and just kill the person because their whole body's in there and it would disrupt it?
Well, it doesn't turn off that ability or anything. It just, makes it, react.
Interesting. Dragon Hadrian was revealed, running towards her, his blue aether coursing around his body. His eyes were fixed directly on her, like a bird of prey locked onto its quarry. He was clearly ready to kill as well. Good, she grinned. Then you can't complain, can you? Only, a thought occurred. Launching that thorn attack had been more a product of bloodlust than anything else, rationalized his strategy afterwards. Projectiles were the attacks most beneficial to Dragon Hadrian. He could record them and immediately fire them back, after all, so why hadn't he? Come to think of it, why was he running around like this at all? Why hadn't he just hidden inside his Gemini world before launching another sneak attack? Was it a buff? No. He was definitely exposing himself to her attacks. There'd be no reason to do that. Unless he couldn't use Gemini world. Dragon Hadrian smiled. Paradise moved with animalistic speed as she raised her hand, the words already on her lips. She'd take no chances. Rather than responding to Hadrian on an individual level, she just flooded the forest against him until he was utterly crushed. If she'd been just a second quicker, her plan might have worked. But she was not a second quicker. Gemini Dominion, Forest of Sin! Right before the Forest of Sin washed over him, Dragon fired his burden out of his aether. There, finally free, he vanished into his Gemini world, escaping the tendrils of the forest as they attempted to seize and crush him. The landscape of the arena was completely infested by the forest, the trees forming a sphere of warped human faces that encompassed the entire battlefield. Dragon fled into the cracks as stray sparks of blue, a stark contrast to the world of black and red that had just been created. However, Paradise made no attempt to track him. She couldn't afford to. Her attention was fixed solely on the thing that Dragon Hadrian had released from his aether. A metal cylinder the size of a man, like an oversized trash can, its surface covered in countless tiny rectangular panels. A red dot of light swam around the rim of the machine, before finally settling on Paradise like a beady and malicious eye. It dilated. Paradise Karen had never seen this thing before, but her instincts, bolstered by the Temple of Sin, informed her that without a doubt this machine was the greatest threat to her life right now. Temple of Sin! A cocoon of wood enveloped her body, protecting her completely, and in that same moment, the Arcana automatic known as the Tower opened up its body. A pack of machine gun barrels that should not have been able to fit inside the chassis crawled forth, pointed as one at Karen, and began to fire. Kill! The automatic screamed. Kill! 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 This is the same automatic that the Halcyon used, right?
Yeah, there's like Dragon came to fight him. We can't find it. Where'd it go? He yoinked it.
And this isn't cheating because he used his ability to bring it out or whatever.
But if you notice, he hasn't used Gemini World once since that chapter, because he's been having this fucking thing in his inventory.
That's so good. What's he gonna do after it does its job? Is he just always gonna be permanently unable to Gemini World till he takes it out?
It's like, here's the match, you fight this guy.
That's so funny, actually. What the fuck? I love that. Alright, let's see if we have any Aether questions for today.
I don't believe gone to Pokemon Trainer.
Does Aetheral Space have any funky sci-fi space materials? Like, does it have its own mithril type indestructible metal or what have you?
Well, it's been mentioned a couple of like apex trees, which is what the Forest of Sin is made of. I was like absurdly tough wood, basically, and it's like a metal practically.
Yeah, I mean, it withstood Gemini Railgun.
Yeah. So that's
pretty
one.
cool.
And Bruno hid in some. I think he hid in some apex wood in like Art 1 at some point.
Ah, okay. That's pretty cool. Well, thank you guys for watching as always, and we will see you next time.
Bye.